everyone, grace, peace, and blessings. Thank you for joining me in another video. Before we get into our topic, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also share, like, and drop a comment. As always, I appreciate everyone's support. Now let's get into our topic for this video, and that is how to solve problems spiritually. When it comes to solving problems and issues in your life, the best way I believe to solve them is to solve them spiritually. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to share 3 things that you can do to assist and aid in you solving your problems spiritually. Now, why is it important that we solve problems or learn to solve problems spiritually? Well, once we solve a problem spiritually, number 1, we will get the best solution to our problems. Number 2, we will more than likely, in most cases, solve our issue permanently. It's the best way to solve a problem, solving it spiritually. Now, what do I mean by solving problems spiritually? That means when we're solving a problem spiritually, we're connecting to God. God is all powerful, all knowing. He has everything, all the answers. That means we're connecting to the divine source, number 1. The power of all, that's God. Number 2, that also means we have divinity within ourselves. We have power within ourselves that God has given us. That means we are also not only tapping into the power of God, but we're also tapping into our divine, I call it our divine intelligence. That's right, we have divine intelligence that comes through the spiritual realm. So this is intelligence that's not available to your own intellect. It's intelligence that's beyond you, and intelligence that you'll get knowledge and understanding that wasn't always available to you, and things you'll begin to understand things that you didn't understand before. So it's important for us to be able to connect to God and also tap into our own divine intelligence, and that's part of the way that we spiritually problem solve. And that's what I mean when I say solving problems spiritually. That means really tapping into supernatural power to solve issues that you have here on earth or things that you may be dealing with. So I'm going to talk about 3 things that will assist and aid and how that will arrive to you solving a problem spiritually. The first thing that you have to consider if you are to solve a problem spiritually, meaning you're going to solve it more than likely permanently and with the best possible solution, because when we have issues in our lives, we want to solve it with the best possible solution so we don't make our issues and our problems in our life worse. So the first thing is that we must have the right and proper approach. The right and proper approach meaning when we go to God and when we connect to God, we have to believe in faith that God has the solution and the answer to every problem that we have here on earth. Anything that we might be facing, God has the answer and solution to. And we approach God and we connect to God and we pray to God. We must have this belief and must have this trust that God has the solution to every problem that we may be facing. If we do not have that approach, more than likely we will not be able to solve a problem spiritually. When we do not have that approach, that means that we don't have enough faith. When we do not have that approach, that means we're going to stay in that issue and stay with that problem longer than we should. So when we approach God, knowing that, and He does have every answer to every problem that you're facing today, when you have that attitude and when you have that posture and that position of faith, that will more than likely put you in a situation, spiritually put you in a situation, even physically, mentally, and emotionally, where you can arrive to solving your problem faster, where you'll be able to get the correct answer, and knowing through faith that God has the solution. And the solutions and the answers will begin to manifest and come into your life and come into your path, and things will get easier when it comes to solving the problems and issues in your life. So number 1, you have to consider your approach, understanding that you're approaching a God and that you're approaching the source and one who is all, who has the solution to every problem. And you also, when a problem presents itself into your life, you must understand that it's usually there for a reason. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we just go through things as just a result of being human beings on earth, and it's things that people go through. Nothing deep or spiritual about it. And then there's things where that appear that's serious issues, but they're there for a reason. They're there to help us to grow. They're there to take us to the next level. They're there to mature us, and they're there actually to help us sometimes in certain ways. But Everybody's faced with problems. Everybody's faced with issues, and we need to learn how to solve them in the best way possible. And one of the first ways to do that is to understand and approach God with the right attitude and the right amount of faith, and you'll get to the solution to your problem a lot easier when you understand that the answer is there. I just have to tap into the source. Number 2, sometimes we go through things and it requires prolonged, I'm calling this prolonged spiritual treatment. A good illustration and example of this is in Matthew, the book of Matthew in the Bible, chapter 17. And there's a story where there's a man who comes to Jesus. He kneels before him and he's like, Jesus, I need your help. I have a son who is unwell. He throws himself into the fire. He throws himself into the water. He has seizures. And he said, listen, I brought the boy, my son, to your disciples and they were not able to cure him. Can you help me? And Jesus is like, you faithless generation, bring the boy to me. And they bring the boy to Jesus, and instantly Jesus laid hands. The evil spirit comes out of the kid, and the boy is instantly cured and healed. And so later on in the story, the disciples approached Jesus, and they're like, yeah, we tried to do that, and we weren't able to do it. Where did we go wrong? Why weren't we able to cast the spirit out and heal and cure this boy? And Jesus is like, well, number one, you don't have enough faith. Number two, if you had enough faith, all you need is the faith the size of a mustard seed, and you can move a mountain. So faith is key. And number 3, listen, there are certain things that can only be moved. And what you were dealing with, and that spiritual issue that the kid had that manifested physically in him having seizures, that requires, in order for you to move that out, that requires prayer and fasting. So you can't move that out without prayer and fasting. So Jesus was, number 1, talking to them about the measure of faith that they needed to have in order to solve that problem and cure that boy. And number 2, or any problem they have. So you need the faith, just a little bit of faith, and it could move a mountain. Number 2, certain things require spiritual treatment. So the spiritual treatment that Jesus was prescribing in Matthew 17 was fasting and prayer. So sometimes in your life, you're going to be faced with issues where the problem is going to be so bad, and it's going to be so intense, and it's going to be so prolonged that it's not going to go away overnight. And it may linger there for months or even years that you're dealing with an issue, but it's going to require some sort of spiritual treatment, and what Jesus prescribed was prayer and fasting. So sometimes you're going to have to go through the motions in order to get certain things to move out of your life, in order to get to that solution to the problem in your life. And this is the point in many people's faith and in their journey, their spiritual journey, where they get tired. And when they give up on God and they say, well, I've been praying for this situation forever. And this is really what trips people up, is when they're dealing with a problem and they don't understand that it requires prolonged spiritual treatment. That means you're going to have to take some time, and maybe a bulk of time or a period of time where you're fasting and when you're praying on a situation. And that fasting and that prayer is going to help to give you your solution and move that issue away and resolve that issue in your life. But it's going to take time. And many times, often, people pray and they think that their solution is going to be resolved instantly. There's so many things working behind the scenes. You're dealing with spiritual things that are going on in the spirit realm. You're dealing with people. If it's a problem with people, you're dealing with people's attitudes. You're dealing with people's will, and that can't easily be changed. So and you're also dealing with circumstance, and sometimes circumstances beyond your control and beyond your reach. And certain things that you may not even have power over. So sometimes it requires spiritual treatment and continuous treatment. That means treatment with continuous prayer. That means treatment with fasting. And sometimes God give you, if you're connected to the source, and if you have a good relationship with God, God will kind of like give you a heads up spiritually for things to come. Like, for example, I dealt with a problem, an issue in my life, the worst possible thing that has ever happened to me ever. And before that problem arrived and before that issue manifested, God prepared me a month in advance. That month in advance, I was praying. I didn't understand why I was praying so intensely. For strength and for spiritual empowerment. I was praying for spiritual empowerment and strength, and I was fasting, and I fasted no food for nearly 30 days. I said, whatever is going to come, that what I'm going to be dealing with in the future is going to be intense. And I knew it was coming from God. God was preparing me. So I fasted for almost a month, and I was praying. I cut the TV off. I got rid of so many different distractions and, just things that I didn't need to deal with. And I was just intense. And what made matters worse is that the preparation for this was around the holiday time. So I went through like Thanksgiving almost through to Christmas, where I wasn't eating and I was like in this intense, usually during the holidays, we kind of like relax and we chill out and we're with family, we're friends, we're having a good time, year end, fun stuff, parties, stuff like that. I removed myself from all of that. And I was like, this is the real deal. God is telling me I have to do this. And after I broke my fast and that season was over of empowerment and preparation for what I was going to face, I faced the worst thing I've ever had to deal with in my life. It was the absolute worst. If I hadn't prepped, if I didn't listen to God, if I wasn't connected to understand that I needed to be doing that in that season, I would have been destroyed. I probably would have had some kind of serious breakdown. But because I was in the place spiritually, I was able to handle it and get through it, and it did not destroy me. So sometimes God will prepare you if you're at the right place. He will prepare you before the problem even manifests and comes into your life. And he will prepare you and give you the solutions and tell you how to prepare while you're in the problem, while you're in the situation, when you see the problem. So that's why I say, and that's why I'm doing this video, the best way to solve a problem and the most powerful way to solve a problem is to solve it spiritually. So sometimes certain issues require prolonged spiritual treatment. Don't give up. Don't give up on your goals. Don't think that this is it. Don't think that God has forgotten about you. Don't think that God doesn't care about what you're going through. Don't think that God hasn't heard your prayers. There's just sometimes you're going to pray and it's going to be instantly removed and you're going to get the solution and the answers that you've been looking for. And other times it's going to take time because there's a lot of things that need to line up in order for this issue which you're facing, in order for it to be resolved. So understand that thing. Prolonged spiritual treatment. The third thing and the final thing I'm going to talk about is that we must, in order for us to solve problems spiritually, we must understand our God-given authority. So understand that if you've been born and you're living, you've been born and now you're living, you have rights. So if God put you on this earth, that means you have a right to be here. You have spiritual rights. And within that comes a purpose. So with those rights, you have a certain measure and a certain amount of authority in your life and in your realm and within your territory and within your environment and whatever you're dealing with. You do have a measure of authority because number one, you're living and God put you here and you have a purpose. And number two, that which means you have a right to exist. And having the right and being born and living and having the right to exist gives you a certain amount of authority on earth. It doesn't mean, you have instant authority over, other people, but it just means that you have authority in your life and with some of the things that happen. This means you have a certain measure. Some people may argue with me on this point, but you do have a certain measure of control and certain things that you can control. And there's other things that we cannot. And we have some authority that comes with that. But if we are to solve problems spiritually, we must understand our God-given rights, our God-given right to exist, our God-given rights in our territory on this earth, and our rights to exist so we can move in our purpose and do what God has put us on this earth to do. So when we understand our authority, when we understand our territory and we're where we're supposed to be, and that also requires constant connection and a strong connection with God. When you're in a place that you're supposed to be and you're within your territory and you're within your realm of authority, you know what that means? It means that whatever you pray for, you're going to get. I know that's a pretty bold statement to make, but it's true. I'm going to share something with you. I'm going to share a secret. There hasn't been a single thing that I prayed for, and knowing God and being born again and understanding Jesus and who I am in God, there hasn't been a single time in everything that I have prayed for, God has given it to me. Not because I'm special, it's because I understand this principle, it's because I understand my rights and my authority. Now, if I'm outside of those rights and that authority in that realm and I'm not where I'm supposed to be, I'm going to pray and not get what I'm supposed to get. And this is what trips people up also. They're praying for things that God, that's not in God's will for them sometimes, and they don't get it and they get mad at God. And then they're in places that they're not supposed to be. They're not in the right territory. They're not in the right realm spiritually. And they're in places where they're not supposed to be, and they're praying to get certain things and they don't get it. That's because they're not where they're supposed to be, and they're not in the right territory, and they don't understand their God-given authority. But when you understand your God-given authority, and when you're connected to God, God will place you exactly where you're supposed to be at the right time in a certain time frame. And because you're moving, and which means you're moving in purpose, and as you move through purpose, because God does not want us to fail, and He wants to bless us, and He has things for us, and He wants to bless our lives. So when you're moving in the right way, and you know your authority, whatever you pray for, you're going to get. And God is going to bless you when you understand your God-given authority, which means that you'll arrive to solving problems in your life quicker when you understand your authority, quicker when you understand where you're supposed to be in your life. And God will help you as you move through your journey, and He will tell you bit by bit. He's not going to give you the whole full plan. I mean, we have to live through life, but measure by measure, step by step, God will tell you what to do. But that requires you being in the right place at the right time with the proper understanding. So those are the three things that I wanted to share with you on how to solve problems spiritually. Number one, must have the right approach. Number two, sometimes certain problems require prolonged spiritual treatment, and apply it when necessary, definitely. And number three, understand your spiritual authority. And when you get these things, when you get these three things, you will begin to see problems in your life move out faster. You begin to arrive to answers and solutions a lot quicker. You'll be smarter because you're tapping into your divine intelligence, and we all have it. Discover it, know it, understand God, and stay connected to Him always. That's what I want to share with you. I hope this message and this video has been a blessing to your life. Share this video if it's been helpful. And that's all I have to share with you. So take care. God bless. And I will see you in the next video.